Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So tonight, we're going to talk about Casablanca and perception. Casablanca is widely perceived as one of the greatest films ever made. And this perception is so ingrained in American culture that people who have never seen it will tell you it is their favorite film. Fact. It's viewed as something that had a huge impact on American society. It's the perception. So much so that its most memorable quote, "Play it again, Sam." It's not in the movie. That's not from the movie. Perception. Sometimes the perception is more important than the reality. Now, of course, we're not actually going to talk about the film. We are going to talk about Casablanca, though. January 14th, tomorrow, 1943. Roosevelt, Churchill, and de Gaulle sit down at a hotel in Casablanca. And they're talking about the situation in Europe. Now, the Soviet guy, he was supposed to be there, but he was a little busy at the time. He was kind of tied up, so he couldn't make it. They issued a proclamation, a demand, mainly coming from Roosevelt, and this bears out in the fact that he used the language of grant. And it was a proclamation saying that we would only accept unconditional surrender. No deals to be made. Tough guy line right there. And that's cool, but what's the reality? That's the perception, that's what went out, that's what was in the newsreels. The reality is, British intelligence already working out a deal. Had guys within the government of the guy with the mustache, had already made contact with some of them, and they were like, get rid of them. Get rid of that guy, get rid of the mustache, and we'll deal with this. We can work out a deal. The boss of our OSS, our intelligence at the time, he referred to it as a piece of paper to be scrapped without much ado the second Germany wanted peace. See, back then, intelligence actually worked, under direct supervision of the president, prime minister. So, why was this proclamation made? It wasn't true in any sense of the word. So why was it made? For the benefit of the guy who wasn't there. See, as Americans, and to a lesser degree, those in the UK, we did that. It was Audie Murphy, General Patton, and Montgomery. Those three guys took care of the whole thing. The reality is, we really needed that Eastern Front. Because if that wasn't there, all of those resources could be turned our way. So we wanted to kind of lock them in and say, don't make a separate peace deal. Even though we were trying to, or willing to. We wanted to make sure that front stayed open, because our long-range goal was to take the Germans and just spin them around and use them to stop the Soviet advance. Perception is often more important than what actually happened. So let's take that lesson and apply it to today. Yeah, the perception is we left our friends a couple months ago. And in that case, the perception is the reality. That is really what happened. But we knew how that was going to be perceived all over the world. And we talked about what was likely to happen, and it happened this week. They're going to leave you too, right? We created that by allowing that perception and reality. What about the events of recently? us being the unwanted house guest again. Nation saying you need to leave and us saying no. Sure. Doesn't matter. It's just one country. But what's the perception of all of those other places we're guests? Are we really there to help them? Or are those bases really just outposts of the empire? Has that perception shifted because of what we did? I would guess that it has. This is the problem with this administration. He's a businessman. He is a businessman. He views things in a transactional nature. The problem is that's not the way everything works. These things don't occur in a vacuum. The perception is what's important. The perception is what saves lives or costs them. The perception of the last couple of weeks from outside the United States, it's not good. It's not good. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good night.